Hello, this is Grid Live Wrap-Up. A driver nicknamed the Hurricane is finally a winner at the NASCAR Cup Series in Talladega. MotoGP saw Aprilia's winning streak come to an end this weekend. Plus, the World Rally Championship saw another contender for the win crash out on this final day. Welcome to Grid Live Wrap-Up. I'm Isha Azim from Racing with Isha. With me are Kobe Lambeth from Grid Tonight and Matthew Rowe from Grid Rising and GridNetworkTV.com, where he's working on the Talladega recap. As always, a big thank you to our investors, Colin Deschelle, Mark, Robin, David, Matthew, Crystal, Nico, and Gloria. You too can invest in the Grid Network through Patreon or YouTube channel membership, linked in the video description. Plus, we accept one-time investments through Buy Me a Coffee and Super Chats to get your name on the leaderboard. Don't forget to hit the bell icon and subscribe to our channel. Now, let us start with one of the most intimidating tracks in all of motorsports, Talladega Superspeedway. This 2.66-mile drafting-style track has produced numerous first-time winners through the course of its history, including this weekend, entering today's race with Andy Jankowiak and Corey Day winning the ARCA and O'Reilly races on Saturday. You'll hear more about those races tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern on Grid Rising with Tanner Smith and Matthew. But today, we had a first winner in the Cup Series. On the final lap coming into the Tri-Oval, Carson Hocevar was leading the bottom lane with help from Alex Bowman, and Chris Buescher was up top being pushed by Ricky Stenhouse Jr. A crash occurred before reaching the start-finish line as Shane Van Gisbergen turned Ryan Preece around, which collected Austin Dillon and Christopher Bell. While this was going on, Stenhouse got Buescher loose on the outside, killing their momentum as Hocevar took the checkered flag on the inside, winning for the first time in the Cup Series. The driver, nicknamed the Hurricane, has ruffled some feathers with many drivers during his few years of competing at the premier level, but the young prospect who's become increasingly popular with the fans got the job done with a huge roar of approval from the crowd. Matthew, you correctly predicted Hocevar to win in Pick a Winner. What made you feel so confident that he would get the job done? And will he and Spire Motorsports become weekly contenders at non-drafting tracks?
Well, thank you, Anise. It's awesome to have you. I don't think we've hosted a show in, years together, so welcome to the Grid Live Wrap-Up. But for me, it sounds so silly, but I just had this weird feeling, and I've said this before to Joe and Tanner. I've had this feeling twice, at least when it came to picking a winner. One, the first time was Bubba Wallace at the Brickyard 400. It's just I woke up and I'm like, I think he's got it. And then Ty Gibbs a few weeks ago at Bristol. I had this weird feeling he was going to get it done. And I told my father this morning, I called him, I said, I think Hocevar is going to get it done. And he did. And it was just weird. It's just this weird feeling you can't really describe. But a lot of it was, in fact, like you had mentioned in the introduction, you saw Andy Jankowiak win. You saw Corey Day win. Those first-time winners. We'll talk about that on Grid Rising on Monday. And then it's like, well, somebody's got to do it. It's got to be either Carson Hocevar. It's got to be someone like Ryan Preece. Somebody's going to get it done. And it was Carson Hocevar. And also looking at Talladega statistics before Pick a Winner, besides Cole Custer, William Byron, and I believe the other driver was someone else. I can't think off the top of my head. But Carson Hocevar actually in the most recent races here had the fourth best average finish among all drivers, and he has finished sixth the last two races here. So I thought, hey, if we keep that winning trend alive of the new race winners, I think Carson Hocevar was the perfect fit. And plus everything with Garrett Mitchell, Cletus, him being a part of that, seeing him almost win that race, which we'll talk more about that on Grid Rising as well. It was just like, I think this has got to be it for him. And very happy for Carson Hocevar. It's about time, and I think that Spire Motorsports organization is clearly showing they mean business with him getting a win. Daniel Suarez has been absolutely incredible this year, and even looking at the points, Michael McDowell as well. I think he did fall out. Now he's 23rd in the standings. I just looked at my phone, but he's been great this year. That seat looks like it's getting warmer and warmer for one of these other guys, not in the top 20 right now, and that might be Kyle Busch, depending on where his future lies. But yeah, overall, Spire Motorsports is firing on as many cylinders as they have. That was their second career win in the Cup Series, breaking a streak since 2019. I think it was like 200-something races without a win. So they finally got it done. So congratulations to Spire Motorsports. Congratulations to Carson Hocevar. Kid's going to win a lot more races. This was just the first of many.
I agree with you, Matt. It was a race where you always know anybody could win. just because of the crazy nature of Talladega Superspeedway racing in general. But the fact is, Spire Motorsports, they've been very impressive, running better than Trackhouse in many levels. You look at what they've been doing with all three drivers. Michael McDowell lately has been cooling off, dropping down standings. You got Daniel Suarez still in the top 16. Carson Hocevar. He is a driver where he seems to be the lead Spire Motorsports car week in and week out. So it's just a matter of time. When will he get that first win? Not if. Talladega is the first time with them, first-time winners in the past. So seeing him get this win, not necessarily a surprise. We knew he was going to win at some point. This is a track where you get that big win. He's going to have that big wreath. He's going to have all the trophies, the accolades, and to say he won at one of the most revered speedways in all motorsports, Talladega. That's where he's going to carry on. And I got a feeling, as talented as he is, he's not going to be a driver that just only wins in the super speedway. This could be that confidence boost for him and that team where they're going to start winning more races in the non-super speedway track because he has shown he's good at these tracks. Spire Motorsports is getting better and better. Now they're going to have the confidence of we know how to win in these tracks. We know how to win in general. And I think they're going to be much harder to beat.
Yes, I'm sure that there must be lots of conversations about his future, but let us turn towards his victory celebration, which is surely going viral right now on the internet as we speak. Almost reminiscent of Dale Earnhardt climbing out of his car window to clean the windshield while driving his car around the track at Richmond in 1986. Hocevar gave the fans at Talladega a celebration to remember. Hocevar was hanging halfway out of the window on the front stretch as he saluted the fans and showed his raw emotion of finally winning at NASCAR's premier level. At the end of his celebration, Hocevar damaged the front end of his number 77 Chevrolet after hitting the wall while he was still hanging out of the window. Typically, NASCAR frowns when they see situations like this due to concerns of driver safety. So starting with you, Joe, was Hocevar's victory celebration a cool, memorable moment, or do you anticipate NASCAR coming up with a rule to prevent this from happening again?
I think NASCAR is going to have a say in this. I think they're going to mainly be looking at if you want to do something like this where you're hanging out the window, waving to the crowd, you got to be in a situation where you're not going to be driving towards the wall. Maybe not a full length of what he did. Maybe you could put the car into neutral and let it coast, and then you could do that. But it's just really hard because this is going to be a celebration a lot of people are going to be talking about. It's already spreading across social media. And let's not forget, Carson Hocevar is quite tall. He could easily pull this off compared to a shorter driver like a Tyler Reddick, who may not be able to do such a celebration. But definitely, I think driving the car into the wall, anytime we've seen drivers drive the car into the wall to do a burnout, I always feel NASCAR is sort of, okay, because it damages, it could widen, do a lot of stuff. Results are still unofficial. But yeah, I think that's the big focus, especially with him hanging out as he drove into the wall. That's a little too risky.
For me, Joe, I mean, there's a lot of words to describe it. It was foolish. It was ridiculous, goofy, absurd, any synonym you could think of for silly. It was awesome, too. I might give him that. But it was absolutely stupid, too, because I know his lanky butt could have fallen off that car going 50, 60 miles per hour. Luckily, the ambulance was following him. It was silly. Don't do that. Like, that's dangerous, bro. I know you're going near 200 miles per hour at Talladega, which is incredible in itself. But imagine if he had like a Connor Zilic incident where he fell off the car. That would not have been good because at least Zilic was standing still. Hocevar was moving at a fast pace. So, yeah, it was stupid. But at the same time, it was very memorable. NASCAR, unfortunately, loves these marketing trends. That's why you see them absolutely love everything Garrett Mitchell is doing in the ARCA series. They just love it. They love the attention in this social media age. They love it. And Carson Hocevar, being only 23 years old, he understands the importance of marketing and social media, and that's why he is always Twitch streaming, doing what he's got to do. But yeah, he gave NASCAR something to celebrate for a very long time that will 100% likely be banned before this even airs, the post-recording of this airs. I know we're live right now, but there's no way in heck that they don't say that was stupid and never have that happen again. But, yeah, I thought it was exciting. But, yeah, they're definitely right now, that they weren't happy about that. I mean, that was the longest celebration I think we've ever seen. I think championship celebrations probably last a little less than that. But, yeah, it was fun. But, yeah, that's all I got. It was a lot of words. It was awesome, too, but it was a lot of other synonyms for silly.
It was certainly a memorable, yet risky and dangerous performance. So, during Stage 2 on lap 115, the big one struck and 26 drivers were involved. Ross Chastain was getting a big run, which got into the rear of a loose Bubba Wallace, who got turned around into the outside wall in front of the field on the backstretch. Others like Ryan Blaney, Kyle Larson, Joey Logano, William Byron, and more were also taken out in this incident as Chastain continued. For Wallace, this is his third finish of 34th place or worse in the last 5 races. This leaves him with 12th in the point standings. So Matt, what factors led to the big one, and how can Wallace get closer to achieving some of the success that his teammate Tyler Reddick has also achieved, who recently announced that he signed a contract extension after winning 5 races?
Yeah, Isha, I think a lot of things led to the big one. One being a lot of aggressive pushing to start, and the fact that Toyota, they're the great pushers. They really were the best, you would say. Even Chris Buescher in his post-race interview, who finished second, said he was so happy to have Eric Jones behind him, another Legacy Motor Club Toyota, but said that without him, he didn't really feel like he had a shot. So I think just the fact that Toyotas were so loose and could not handle a push, you saw Christopher Bell couldn't handle a push either. That's an issue, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But for Bubba Wallace, I mean, he had an incredible run even last year in 2024, where he went almost like 30 races, I believe, without a DNF, and then continuing to finish inside the top 30. And then all of a sudden, he has a few bad races, and he tanks himself from second to 12th, back up to 8th, and now he's 12th again in the standings. So it's very hard to replicate the success of Tyler Reddick. I would honestly put Tyler Reddick against anyone in the NASCAR Cup Series. I think him and Ryan Blaney, if they were teammates, could give a run for each other's money. But Tyler Reddick, people forgot how good Tyler Reddick was. And I think 2311 kind of held him back, at least last year. The year before, he was the regular season champion. And then RCR kind of held him back, I feel, as well. But Tyler Reddick's just an incredible generational talent. He can win literally everywhere. I'm going to give him some crap on the short tracks. He hasn't done that yet, but he can literally win everywhere else. But for Bubba, he's just got to stay confident and just keep being Bubba Wallace. He's, in my opinion, he's a top 12 to 15 driver in the sport, and he has been for at least the last 3 to 4 seasons. He's just got to break through that dam and get a win. Obviously, the Brickyard 400 in 2025, an incredible win, holding off one of the best drivers in the sport in Kyle Larson multiple times while also running low on fuel and stuff like that. So Bubba Wallace has it in him. He's just got to have all the pieces correctly fall for him, and doesn't seem to happen as much. A couple of years ago, the excuse was the pit crews, and then once they figured that out, he won a race. He started finishing really well, and then it's just come to kind of a bad luck type of thing, where most of these wrecks are not really caused by him, but he ends up being a part of them. And there's a few drivers like that unfortunately, if it can go wrong, it does go wrong. Sam Mayer in the O'Reilly series is a prime example of literally doing well, and then something always happens, and then he falls out. But for Bubba Wallace, it's great to have Tyler Reddick as your teammate for the next couple seasons, at least. I think Bubba Wallace's contract runs out maybe 27, maybe 28. I think that if you're Denny Hamlin, you got to keep those two together. I don't know if it's going to be Corey Haim or Riley Herbst in that third seat next year, or someone else possibly. But if you keep your duo together that has continued to win you races and become very successful, even battling Joe Gibbs as the top Toyota team, a lot of that is because of Tyler Reddick. But I think, yeah, it's hard to compete with Tyler Reddick no matter who you are. But if you're Bubba Wallace, you have to look and say, okay, let me learn from Tyler Reddick's data and see if I can get closer and closer and closer. Because nobody's saying Bubba Wallace is better than Tyler Reddick, because he's not, with all due respect to Bubba Wallace. But also there's 35 other drivers right now that are not better than Tyler Reddick. So it's just, that's one of the things when you have the best driver in the sport right now as your teammate. You're going to look worse than you are. And being 12th in points with multiple top 10 finishes this year is not a bad year. So that's my long rant about the entirety of the race.
Oh, for Bubba Wallace, at the end of the day, he got to remember he is still one of the best drivers out there. I mean, he was second in the points. He's been on this slide where now he's 12. But last year, he got a hot streak, started doing well. He could get there. But anytime you have a teammate that has gotten 5 wins already in the first 10 races, doesn't matter who's your teammate, you're gonna look like you just can't compete to them. But Bubba Wallace knows he has the equipment, he has the backing, the sponsorship. He knows he could go out there and win these races. I mean, really, if it wasn't for that bad push, we could have seen how it all shaped up with Bubba Wallace and just about everyone that didn't get in that big wreck the remainder of the race. But that's part of Talladega. You get that bad push and you can't control it. Someone's right there, wrong place. It's a game on because everyone's crashing. So I think at the end of the day, for Bubba Wallace, focus on your race, focus on what you need to do, and don't listen to the other people. There's always going to be, of course, the people that really seem to be trying to troll Bubba Wallace, and those people that are just going to, always have a reason why they're not cheering for him. But at the end of the day, he knows he could get the job done. He can go out there and win. It's just a matter of executing, and that team is very capable of doing that.
Definitely. Now, let's address one of the biggest controversies. NASCAR adjusted the stage lengths for Talladega to discourage fuel saving in favor of flat-out racing. In the past, the first 2 stages at Talladega were 60 laps apiece, and the final stage was 68 laps. For today's Jack Links 500, Stage 1 was 98 laps long, followed by the last 2 stages of 45 laps each. Despite NASCAR's intentions, the team still saved fuel, even ran in a single-file line at one point, which many fans do dislike, and when they stopped saving fuel, we saw the big one happen. Now, Joey Logano was very critical after he was taken out in the big wreck, saying, "You only have 2 options with this next-gen car. You either save fuel or crash." He added that he knows how to fix the problem with his current Cup car, but declined to say what exactly it was. As previously reported, NASCAR is bringing back preseason Thunder in January 2027 at Daytona to test some ideas in development to improve the superspeedway racing product. So Joe, starting with you, did the adjustments in stage length improve or hurt the on-track product today at Talladega? And why do you think the fan base was so frustrated with the racing?
I think the frustration with the racing product is just one of those deals where everybody wants to see the Talladega that they remember as the good Talladega, where you get the aero racing very hard, trying to go for the lead. You have these interesting battles. It really doesn't come down to the stages or to the pit stop strategy, because quite often we don't really see that. But there is a group of people that do want to see this strategy come in. And I thought, okay, we might see some different strategy, but we saw more of the same. And really, I think it's just one of those deals. I'll bring up a comment in the chat room where I think people are just sort of feeling like something needs to be different. From Ben, "Hey team, wish I was coming to you after a better afternoon. That was awful. 100 laps of a fuel saving before a 26 car wreck with an unfixable next-gen car. At least Hocevar is a good story. Also, today should be the breaking point for stage racing." And that's the thing. I know Matt and I have talked a little bit about like stage racing, and we know NASCAR had experimented, taken it away from the road cars, brought it back. What about for the super speedway races? Because at the end of the day, you don't have those stage cautions. You could potentially still have a race where it's going to be a lot of fuel saving. But if you have, and we saw this a little earlier, that 7-car breakaway, then that's game on. So it's just one of those deals where it's really hard. I mean, the competition is always evolving. The crew chiefs know this is the winning strategy, especially, let's just say we get rid of stage cautions, no cautions. Well, now you're really going to be saving fuel as much as you can, because those green flag pit stops, you want to be as short as possible. So that may not be the solution. So really, I just think this is just one of those deals where I don't know exactly what is the solution. It's not a clear, simple solution as people saw, but NASCAR tried something, and at least I'll give them credit for attempting something. But it's just the way it is right now with the super speedway package.
For me, a couple of things. To quote the dishonorable Christian Horner when he said this to Toto Wolff in, I think it was 2022, change your blanking car. That's what NASCAR has to do for the next gen car. The Speedway, super Speedway package is abysmal. I'm not going to look up other synonyms for that. You guys get the point after the Hocevar rant. But yeah, it's just absolutely outrageous, and something needs to be changed. I do have a solution. I think Ben will strangle me, though, if I say it. I am pro stage racing. I am probably the most pro stage racing person that's ever come on Grid Network, and I will stand by that. I love stage racing and what it does. Super speedways, I feel like they would kill. It would like actually kill super speedway racing if they got rid of the stages. Ben says the only solution. He's absolutely right there. The O'Reilly cars are just significantly better. The ARCA car is probably a little more dangerous, but he does make very valid points there. I think if you eliminated the stage racing in the super speedways, you would just see more fuel saving. I just, like Joe said, there's not really a good answer. I love and I applaud that NASCAR did try to do something, and I think it worked for the second half of the race, like Ben alluded to, as well as Joe. The first half, Shane Van Gisbergen dropped back to 40th and was running 35% throttle and keeping up with the pack. That was silly. We didn't want that to happen, and it encouraged it even more. Because there were no wrecks for, I don't know if the first stage even had a caution. So when you go 100 laps of no accidents, that's bound to happen. So I have a solution. I think people are going to be really mad about it because I'm pro stage racing. But please hear me out. The Coca-Cola 600 is the only other race to do this. I think Speedway racing, you're going to get what I'm getting at. I think super Speedway racing, specifically for Talladega and hell, even Daytona 500, add a fourth stage. So you could split them up even more evenly. So if this was a Jack Links 500, that is about 47 laps per stage, which ends up being about the fuel run. So the drivers can save a little bit, but can still race hard to get those extra points. Now, Ben's probably going to text me and be like, you're silly and stupid, but that's really, I think, one solution that NASCAR can go to that probably won't work out because, like we mentioned, NASCAR fans are arguably the worst in sport, and they're not happy regardless of what happens. The only time people are happy is when their favorite driver wins the event. So with that being said, I think it hurt the start of the race, but I think the ending of the race, especially the final two stages, really was chaotic in a good way because they weren't really wrecking each other besides the whole 26 car pileup. If you go after that, not really much accidents besides single car like Tyler Reddick, Ty Gibbs, and then Eric Jones he got plastered by Hocevar. But still, those are all single car wrecks. All happen to be Toyotas too, funny enough. But yeah, that's what I got. Yes, I know exactly what he's talking about. That is blasphemous. I believe that is a Mr. Stephen A. Smith, which we won't even talk about quote. But yeah, so that's my long kind of rant. Everyone's going to be frustrated regardless. Joe, Isha, you guys understand it completely. We cover so many motorsports, it's bound to happen. But in NASCAR, I think it's the worst when it comes to trying to find a solution.
I would say I think a fourth stage in the super speedways where it's like, okay, everybody just has to go flat out. Then there's a caution, everyone fuels. But still, I don't know if that would solve the problem of, okay, we don't have the fastest car. We're going to just save, get a quicker pit stop, and then change position. But I mean, that's the thing, is just this is just something where it's hard for NASCAR to figure out a solution, and I just don't see a clear one because, I mean, even if this race was no stages at all, because we see this with the Indianapolis 500, there was a lot of fuel saving in that early part of the race. So it's just one of those deals where what incentive are you going to do unless you made something like the fastest lap awards dozen more points and everyone's trying to go faster earlier, but I just don't see an easy solution.
Yep, definitely. Before you go, Matthew, we would like to hear your one shining moment from this past race weekend.
Gotcha. Well, thank you. There's bunch from the other shows we cover on Grid Rising, so I'll save those. But I think my main two from this specific weekend, probably in an obvious way, it would be Carson Hocevar. I mean, the kid's very talented, one of the next best prospects in the sport. I can't wait to see when Connor Zilch figures it out, him battling with Hocevar and Corey Heim and Jesse Love and Brent Cruz when all those guys get up to Cup. It's going to be awesome. In addition, I want to throw a name out there that we didn't mention even once in our NASCAR discussion, and that is the Garage 66, aka MBM Motorsports entry of Chad Fincham. For those of you who don't know, Chad Fincham is a veteran who never has really been in respectable equipment at all in his career. He's run multiple races across all the series. In fact, the Garage 66 entry has only ever led two laps, I should say, ever in the NASCAR Cup Series before today. So Chad Fincham went out in that number 66 car and led 8 laps, which is also 8 more laps than he's ever led in the Cup Series. I am 99% sure he has never led a single lap until today. So my one shining moment is to give respect to those Garage 66 guys and gals who were able to give Chad Fincham a car to where he can go up to the front and lead 8 laps, because a lot of drivers didn't even lead at all. So that would be my multiple shining moments, mainly NASCAR focused. I know Joe and Kobe have a lot more to talk about, MotoGP, WRC, and then, as always, Grid Rising Monday. Tanner and I have a lot to talk about too. We'll try not to make it an hour and a half broadcast like we have been. But yes, thank you as well, Isha. It was a pleasure once again to host with you for the first time in a few years, and then to you, Joe and Kobe. Always a pleasure as well, and thank you guys. And make sure to check out gridnetworktv.com for my NASCAR Cup Series recap for Hocevar riding the Dente to victory lane.
Thank you so much, Matthew. Now that is all for our NASCAR talks for today. I'll turn it over to Kobe for MotoGP and World Rally Championship.
Thank you, Isha. Thank you, Matthew. And now looking at MotoGP, Marco Bezzecchi's attempt to win his 6th consecutive MotoGP Grand Prix brought him to Jerez in Spain for the 4th round of 2026. The most consecutive wins in MotoGP are 10, with 3 riders achieving that. The most recent was Marc Marquez in 2014. Bezzecchi qualified 4th, putting him on the 2nd row behind the sprint race winner and pole sitter Marc Marquez. In the sprint, Marquez led a Ducati sweep on the podium with 4 Ducati riders in the top 5. Brad Bender, the lone KTM rider in the top 5, finished 4th. Raul Fernandez was the highest finisher for Aprilia, finishing 6th, and Bezzecchi DNF from the sprint. In the Grand Prix, Marc Marquez crashed out, scoring no points, while his brother Alex Marquez, who did not finish the sprint, won the Grand Prix at Jerez. Bezzecchi came home in 2nd place ahead of Fabio Di Giannantonio. Jorge Martin was in 4th place, so the 2 factory Aprilia riders remained 1st and 2nd in the standings, and Fabio Di Giannantonio moved to 3rd place ahead of Pedro Acosta, while Marc Marquez sits in 5th place. Joe, do you think Ducati is ready to fight the Aprilia riders for the championship?
I think so. I mean, Jerez, especially this seems to start the traditional, more European rounds of MotoGP competition. They were looking good. So overall, I think it is going to be game on with Ducati. The big thing is the consistency. And that's where I feel like Marc Marquez been a little bit slacking. Pecco Bagnaia, oh goodness, where has he been this year? But then looked better in the sprint. And then Trackhouse and their equipment, they're going to be, I think, fighting up there as well too. So it's going to be a really nice battle to see what Ducati can do with Aprilia. Aprilia will be a test of, do they have the equipment for the European leg? And I'm very curious about KTM, because we're seeing how with KTM, Pedro Acosta had that fast start, seems to be leveling out, maybe a little step behind everybody. But Brad Binder, what a weekend for him. So overall, I think this could be a nice year of competition between Aprilia, Aprilia, Ducati. And if KTM can find a little bit more speed, they could be in the hunt.
Yes, for sure. And it's also interesting when you look at the grid rating for MotoGP, as Marc Marquez dropped out of the top 5, so he's not even in the grid ranking for this week. I know it's really crazy when we talk about Marc Marquez, a former, grid ranking world champion, who's almost always, up there in the top 10 when he's healthy. And it's just really wild to me that we don't have Marc Marquez in the grid ranking, especially after how he performed so strongly last year. So that's probably one of the biggest surprises, of the week. And Alex Marquez, he moved into fifth place while Acosta and DJ Antonio swapped third and fourth place. And Mark has 2 sprint race wins this year, no Grand Prix podiums, and 2 DNFs in 4 starts. So are you concerned about his unusual start to the season and the lack of consistency?
I mean, the lack of consistency, I feel a lot of it is just he sort of brings it onto himself with some of the accidents, some of the issues that he has. But I don't think it's because he doesn't have big talent. I think sometimes he just pushes himself too hard and then makes these mistakes, and it costs him. At the end of the day, we still have quite a lot of races to go in MotoGP, so I do believe he has the time. Because if he starts getting hot and gets win after win, then it's going to be hard to beat him. We're going to have tracks where he's really good at coming up as well, too. So I think it was a big surprise what happened in Coda, where it was just, okay, Marco Bezzecchi just had the bike to beat. But now we're going to be coming to these tracks where if Ducati is looking as strong as they were, and Marc Marquez can put together solid races and just finish, the fact he still has no podiums is a bit of a surprise. Once he gets going, it's going to be hard to beat him. So I really think it's going to be a matter of just seeing what he could do before time's running out. Because we'll get to that point later on in the season where, okay, you really need to start stepping up because everyone will be on the top form. It's just a matter of how big of a jump will we see Marquez go when he's on the top of his game later in this season and where everybody else stands.
Yeah, it's an interesting case of Marc Marquez. I wonder if he's still facing lingering effects from the injury he suffered late last year that knocked him out at the end of the 2025 season, because we saw, before when he, was trying to come back from the arm injury, he was struggled, quite a bit. And then once he was finally healthy, he was riding extremely well. And then when he got hurt again, he just wasn't the same, as before. And I do wonder if the injury is playing a role in his lack of consistency in some of the early season struggles we've seen this year, or if it's, just related to the Ducati bike this year, which is not as strong as it has been in recent years. As you mentioned, his teammate, Pecco Bagnaia. Joe, honestly, sometimes I forget that Pecco Bagnaia is on the MotoGP grid recently because of some of the struggles that he's had recently in this series. So it's still very early on in the season, like you say, Joe. We're just at the start of the European season now, so we're going to be racing across Europe in that region for the next few months before we do the flyaway races when we get into like the late summer, early fall. So there's plenty of time for Marc Marquez to put together a championship defense campaign. Is this not off to the best start, but there's still plenty of time for him to move forward in a strong and positive way.
Yeah, plenty of time for him to move strong and forward. And of course, MotoGP, it's going to be a lot of fun to follow that season as well. In the chat room, Jamie, hello from North Carolina. Thanks for tuning in as always. And I see you have a question as well, too. Does Michael Jordan consider NASCAR drivers athlete? MJ's opinion has more weight than Stephen A. Smith. 100%. Michael Jordan knows what it takes for these drivers to be in that race car. Everything they're doing. He's been a fan of this sport since he was in the college days at North Carolina. Very passionate about it. And of course, don't forget, he also had a motorcycle team as well, too. And he knows what the motorcycle riders are. They're just as athletic, and they put their body through a lot of abuse with the G-forces, the fact they fall off the motorcycles, wearing those suits. I mean, look what Marc Marquez had to go through. Just about every rider in MotoGP has gone through arm pump surgery. So Michael Jordan, he knows what it takes to be in a race car and a motorcycle like MotoGP. And in fact, I believe the year the Kentucky Kid won the MotoGP championship against Valentino Rossi, Michael Jordan was there to witness it. So Michael Jordan has a tremendous amount of respect for all the athletes in motorsports.
Yeah, Joe. And, not just, NASCAR drivers, all race car drivers are athletes, or MotoGP riders, as you mentioned, they're athletes as well. It doesn't matter where you drive stock cars, whether you're in Formula One, IndyCar, you're running sports cars, you're running racing bikes or drag racing cars. It doesn't matter. Like you're an athlete, and it really does take a lot of effort to do what all of these drivers all around the world do each and every week. It's not as easy as some people say, where you just sit in a car and just drive in circles for hours. And it honestly disappoints me that we have people who say that. And I don't know if you experienced this, Joe, when you were in school or whatever, but when I was in school, people always just tell me, like, why do you like racing? All I do is drive in circles. And then my senior year of high school, I actually had a teacher make an extremely ignorant comment towards me. Yeah, like me and my friends were in class. We were talking about motorsports and stuff. They were asking me questions about it. And then my teacher actually said, "I don't know why you like racing." And then she's like, "It's so easy that a fat person could get on a car and just go around in circles for hours and, have a chance to win." And I'm thinking, you're a teacher and you're making the most uneducated opinion possible. I'm like, I'm not sure if you need your teaching license right now if you're putting that garbage out into the world. A lot of people just don't understand it, Joe. I feel like if the general public who don't know the ins and out about motorsports, if they were to be educated about the process of what drivers go through, I think that most of them would be willing to change their opinions that drivers are athletes, and this is not easy as it looks, because as we know, Joe, and a lot of our viewers know as well, turning left for 3 and 4 hours at a time. It's not as easy as it seems. You cannot hop in a car and go 200 laps around Bristol in an ARCA car. That's something that people think they can do, but not everybody can do that, because it's so extremely difficult. Because during the week, given where things are, you have to go to the simulator. Especially if you're aligned with the manufacturer, you get your sim time. You got to watch film, like your traditional athletes do. In football or basketball, baseball, you sit down and watch, and either watch the races on YouTube, which is accessible to anyone, or you can go back and look at the S&T data or whatever data they use in other series and see what the drivers were doing at various points of the race. You do your studying, do your eye coordination tests as well, making sure your reflexes are really good on the racetrack, and then the training programs that they have. A lot of drivers, go on long runs, and they have to hit the gym, build up that upper body strength, because and to disprove what my former teacher said in the past, you can't run 600 miles at Charlotte Motor Speedway on Memorial Day weekend, just by, hey, I'm not even going to prepare for this. I'm just going to get in the car and go out there and run 600 miles. You cannot do that. For one, you probably pass out due to dehydration, and since it's usually very hot in late May here in North Carolina, and number two, your arms would fall off, especially if you have an issue with the car and have no power steering, because you have to have a significant amount of body strength to be able to muscle, race cars all around the racetrack. I just wish the general public were more open, to being educated on this topic, that drivers are absolutely athletes. Yes, it may be different than your traditional sports, as I mentioned, like football, basketball, baseball, hockey, soccer, all of the above. But driving a race car is not as simple as it seems. You have to go through all the processes all week. You have to meet with sponsors and all of that, like traditional athletes do. Yeah, you have to just put in all of the work, and make sure when you get to the track on the weekends that you're doing the best you can do, because it's a very lengthy process to be a race car driver. And I wish it was as easy as it seemed, but it's not. It's actually a lot that goes on.
It's a lot that goes on, and that's the thing. People just see the product and they just think, oh, I can do that. And it's like, are you crazy? I mean, you can't just hop in a car with so much horsepower where if you floor it, because some people just think, oh, I'm just going to put the pedal to the metal. You're going to lose control and spin out the car. We see that. I mean, even the FIA president did that with the F1 car where he wrecked it. You got to be on such a top level. And I've always told folks, if you think you could do it, go to your local short track and do it. Go to the go-karting place and do it. Prove what you can do, because you got to work up that ladder. This isn't just sitting around. There's no air conditioning. You got all the, I mean, we've seen in IndyCar, especially with the aero screen, how it gets really hot in those cars where the drivers Detroit a few years ago, they were just cooking in that car. Formula One, those G forces does so much to their necks, or their neck muscles are trained. Just look at Kimi Antonelli, 19-year-old, but he has a very thick neck. MotoGP, the fact that just about every rider has to get arm pump surgery to remove some of those muscles because they just tend to tense up, lock up, and it's really painful. I don't know any other sports that where it's just a certainty that, oh, you're going to be doing this sport, you need to get this surgery, get this muscle removed, because or else it's going to cause you trouble. It's just motorsports is just one of those areas where you have to see for yourself, you have to be there, and you know somebody that is just really ignorant that they could just hop in the car and run. Okay, take them to a big race weekend, get them the garage pass, and learn, see what they're doing, or try to convince them to run the local short track and see, okay, tell me that was easy. Because they'll learn firsthand. It's like, boy, I was wrong. And of course, I believe it was Ernest Hemingway that quote that the only sports are bullfighting and motor racing. Because at the end of the day, with those two sports, there could be some fatalities if you're really not careful and you get in a serious crash.
Yeah, Joe. And actually, when I turned 18 for one of my birthday presents, my aunt and uncle took me in to Southwest Virginia and entered me in my very first professional go-kart racing event. And it just wasn't just an ordinary go-kart racing event. Like you think about the road courses. I actually ran an oval race, in a go-kart. And talking to a lot of people who race go-karts, a lot of them told me they've never run on an oval before. They've only, run like a traditional road course style setup on a go-kart. And I actually ran an oval race. Yeah, and I came there, we did our practice session, did qualify. There were 20 of us. I qualified like 17th or 18th. So, it was a lot harder than I thought. And then when I got to our 100 lap race, it was like at 4:00 in the afternoon. I think it was in early June. So, it was like 90 degrees outside. So it was extremely hot out there in the sun. And I really had an extremely difficult time because I'll be honest, I didn't know real preparation for this race. I just thought that it was going to be, hey, I'm just going to go out here, have a good time, and I'm going to just, do as best as I can. And while I did try as best as I could, I found out that it wasn't as easy as I thought it was. Even on a go-kart, it was a major struggle because I had noodle arms, didn't do any lifting or whatever. And go-karts don't have any power steering. So and our top speed was 60 miles per hour on this little short oval. And it was extremely difficult for me. And I ended up finishing several laps down, and I finished outside the top 15. And I also crashed into the tire barrier and entering turn 3 because I was trying to make a move on the inside and misjudged and actually went off the track into the tire barrier there. So I know firsthand it's not as easy as I thought it was. So if I could do it over again, I would do it the right way and prepare like an athlete would, because these drivers are athletes. And if you try to tell me otherwise, I'll be like, I'm sorry, I'm just going to respectfully disagree.
100%. They are athletes. The race car driver, they are top level, and they do a lot to get where they are, especially in the top level, such as Carson Hocevar at 23. We got a couple comments in the chat room. Let's go, Carson Hocevar. I'm glad he won. I'm not a huge fan of him. He rode the Dente today, baby. And Jamie, Hocevar winning is the best story in NASCAR so far in 26. This definitely feels like a feel-good moment. And of course, one of the big things is just waiting for seeing when the results become official. As soon as we know that, we'll pass the word on. But Kobe, let's switch over to the final racing series from the grid ranking weekend, World Rally Championship.
Yeah, and the Toyota winning streak continues in World Rally Championship with Sebastian Ogier taking the win at Rally Alas Canarias in Spain. Oliver Solberg was closing in on Ogier with a 2.2 second gap, which was actually at 3.8 seconds at the start of the day. But Solberg went off and hit an Armco barrier, damaging his car beyond repair, and he retired. I know it sounds familiar because that's exactly what happened with Thierry Neuville, in the last race, where it seemed like he had it in the bag until he didn't. And it was an unfortunate situation, with Oliver Solberg today. And, after that incident in which Ogier took the win. Elfin Evans came home in second with Sami Payari in third. For the all-Toyota podium, Takamoto Katsuta brought his Toyota home in fourth place. So Elfin Evans gained the points lead by 2 points over Takamoto. So, Joe, did Ogier's win look certain before Solberg crashed?
I wouldn't say it looked certain. I feel there was still potential that Oliver Solberg could go out there and get the win. He had been reducing the gap down. I mean, from 3 point to 2.2, gets it down to, let's just say, even if it was like 1.1, you are right there, and it only takes a mistake from Ogier to really bring that down. For Solberg, he was quite upset, and it's like rightfully so, because even though he has a win already, the rest of the year he's been average. I mean, he got two teammates ahead of him in the standings, so I think he did feel a little bit more pressure to go out there and try to get this win, but it just didn't work out, and now he finds himself in a bigger hole compared to when he entered the race weekend, because he missed out on all the points in the power stage. At the end of the day, when it comes to Toyota and this season, they're going to be looking back, because I'm starting to think, Kobe, this could be the Toyota sweep. They're just looking that great, and if they occur, then it's going to be just a matter of where did the Toyota drivers finish in order. Is it Elfin Evans, Ogier? Who will be the top driver? Who will be the third or fourth place driver? It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. And in the standings, if they could even do a Toyota 1, 2, 3, that would be very impressive. But I think it will also show that the competition is just really starting to lack and starting to show more and more of it.
Yeah, for sure, Joe. And like I said, the last time we talked about World Rally Championship, I feel like Thierry Neuville's, which was supposed to be a victory for him, that might have been the only chance Hyundai had to win this year, because they haven't shown consistently enough that they can get up there and contend for the win, because the Toyotas are just too strong right now. And when Ducati was winning all the race in MotoGP, we often call MotoGP the Ducati Cup class. I think we can call this the Toyota Cup class of World Rally Championship, because Hyundai and your occasional Ford, which, you know, we never talk about Ford on this program hardly, because they're never competitive, unfortunately. They just don't really have a real chance to compete, because the Toyota WRC car right now is firing on all cylinders, and I don't think that's going to happen, or I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. And we're almost out of time for the night, so let's get on to our great one shining moment from this racing weekend. So let us know down in the chat, either watching here live or on replay, what's the one thing that stood out to you, whether it was from NASCAR at Talladega or World Rally Championship and MotoGP in Spain at their respective locations. So Joe, I'll start off with you. What's your great one shining moment?
My one shining moment is coming from Talladega Superspeedway. I think it's the obvious one. Carson Hocevar getting his first career win. We knew how talented this kid was when he was coming up, even in the truck series. Made that start, I believe it was at Gateway a couple years ago, his first start, and looked pretty impressive. And then to now move up, get Spire their second win as an organization racing in NASCAR, and his first race win. In a year where we're seeing one driver win 5 races, where Chevrolet, we've just seen the victory really from Chase Elliott. You know, you got the point where now Carson Hocevar, Spire team, I think they fully are here. They're going to be staying in the competition, in the thick of everything. And the results are now official, so there's no changes. Overall, it looks like it's going to be a big win for the sport as well. We know it's been made from the new CEO of NASCAR. He's good with Carson Hocevar's celebration. So we'll see if Carson Hocevar will make that his traditional celebration. Who knows? There's some drivers, I hope they don't try to copy that. I'm looking at Connor Zillage. And let's see how it all shapes up. But this could be a big moment for them in 2026.
Yeah, we all hope Connor does not attempt that, because I have a feeling it would end very badly for him. And yeah, my one shining moment is also going to come from the Cup Series race, and I'm going to give it to our third place finisher, Alex Bowman. It's been a brutal start to the 2026 season for Alex Bowman. It seemed like just nothing's gone right, and then we all remember when he got sick during the Cup race at Coda and had to pull into the garage area for Mike Snyder to finish that, and then missing several races with vertigo, and then coming back and getting involved in incidents, and still the same old before. He had the issues with vertigo, but for Alex Bowman to be in contention for the win today, he was the one, to give Carson Hocevar the push he needed to get the victory lane today for Spire Motorsports. And although Bowman did not win the race, he was up there in the mix. I'm sure that's going to be a good boost of morale for Alex Bowman, that number 48 team. I know it's a super speedway, drafting style track and all of that, but just to be able to run well and get a top 5, be in contention for the win, that's something that number 48 team and driver can hang their hat on and, use it as a springboard to finally, build some momentum. We know for Bowman this year, his chances of making the chase are probably, completely gone by now, but the best thing, he can do, just go out there and do the best each week and try to rack up some good finishes. And it was interesting after the race. He said that he was just relieved that he did not crash because he doesn't have too many more crashes in him, which is, very interesting comment for Alex Bowman to make. He says, his future, is always, up in the air, and we don't know how much longer he'll be in the 48 car or want to continue, racing full time since all the health issues he's had in the last few years. But for today, really glad he can celebrate a top 5 finish because he's been through a lot.
He has been through a lot, so it's really good to see him have that strong finish. And if something had gone crazy with the top 2 ahead of him, he could have been in position to get a win, and that would have been also a very positive story for the industry. Of course, we're going to have more stories tomorrow on Grid Rising. Tanner, Matthew got a lot to recap from Talladega with the O'Reilly Series, ARCA Menard Series. Plus, we have Matthew working on his article on Grid Network TV, so be sure to check out gridnetworktv.com and Grid Network TV across social media. We got the EPI, they're updated, up and running. And of course, Grid Ranking, we'll have those up later tonight as well. And subscribe to us right here on YouTube so you don't miss any of our programming and clips that we post throughout the week. And a big thank you to our Patreon investors calling the show: Mark, Robin, David, Matthew, Crystal, Nico, and Gloria, for investing in the Grid Network through Patreon or YouTube membership. There's a paid membership where you get your name on the leaderboard, and one-time buy me a coffee super chats are always appreciated right here. For Kobe Lambeth, Matthew Bro, and Isha Azim, I'm Joe San Diego. Thank you for watching today's program. We'll see you next time.